Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who. Last time around we had The Hungry Earth and Cold Blood. What were those about?
Well, it was the return of the Silurians. Apparently, somebody was digging an oil and gas or coal well, some huge well in Wales, and it poked into a pocket of the Silurians who had been left there for, more than 70 million years, I guess. And I think the Doctor called them the warrior caste, had decided that they were going to come up and punish all the people in the village. And there was a family in particular where the son goes missing, and the Doctor decides to follow down this transportation tube, I guess. Anyway, so it turns out to be a gigantic prelude to a war between the Silurians and the humans. But the Doctor chooses some of the people from the village to negotiate on behalf of the human race, which unfortunately doesn't turn out well because they had killed one of the warriors. But the leader of the Silurians, I guess he would be the politician, came in and told the warrior to stand aside because he didn't want a war with the humans. And it starts to resolve itself, but if I recall right at the end, the warrior tries to shoot the Doctor, but Rory steps in and gets shot instead. Just about the time the Doctor discovers another crack, like the one in the wall of Amy's bedroom when she was a child, and Rory gets absorbed into it so that Amy forgets who Rory is, but then the Doctor shows a piece of something that he pulled out of the crack, and it was a corner of the police box, the TARDIS.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, but who is this Rory that you speak of? I don't know what you're talking about. This has been Amy and the Doctor this whole time.
Uh-huh.
So
this is what's called gaslighting.
And this is what is called non-effective gaslighting. So
hey, I've directed gaslighting 3 times, so I know what it all is about.
Well, yeah.
For those of you who are not familiar with the title Gaslighting, it was originally the play Angel Street. But, yes, directed it 3 different times.
Well, yeah. So, anyway. But yeah, the Silurians, they basically put them back to sleep for what they said would be 1,000 years, and hopefully the humans would be better by then. They probably won't be. But it's a good, hopeful thing, and if the show lasts another 1,000 years, then maybe we'll get an episode about that. So, we'll have to see. But yeah, that is pretty much where we left off. Anything else?
No, I was just saying the new design of the Silurians, to me, kind of resemble the old Draconians. And again, if there was ever a group of aliens that I think should have been brought back, it was the Draconians. That was one of the better written and better makeup versions in Classic Who.
Well, yeah, so... Yeah, I mean, the Silurians, they do definitely make them, like... They put more human into them, into the faces, definitely, with the prosthetics, so... I don't even remember what the Silurians looked like originally, so...
They were very dragon-like, if I recall correctly, because that's why they were called the Draconians.
Well, yeah. So... Yeah, I guess that's it. We're moving on to the next episode. This is a big episode. Very, very popular, very beloved episode. And, yeah, that's just it. So
one that actually has the Doctor in the title. There's
That's
very
true.
few of them that actually have that.
Well, yeah. So yeah. Let's just get to it.
So this is one of the last paintings Van Gogh ever painted. Those final months of his life were probably the most astonishing artistic outpouring in history. We have here possibly the greatest artist of all time, but when he died, you could have sold his entire body of work and got about enough money to buy a sofa and a couple of chairs. Well, in that case, probably somewhere between the 1st and 3rd of June. What year? 1890, less than a year before he killed himself.
Thank you, sir. Very helpful indeed. Nice bow tie. Bow ties are cool.
What about the other picture?
No, art can wait. This is life and death. We need to talk to Vincent Van Gogh.
Oh, I should mention, because I remember watching this episode, and I was like, wait, are you not supposed to pronounce it Vincent Van Gogh? And this is like, well, this is how the British are pronouncing it. And but then a lot of comments were like, there's no agreed upon way of how to say it.
I think the Dutch would pronounce it Van Gogh.
Yeah.
But everybody else literally pronounces it Van Gogh.
Dr. Black there was doing that more throaty than the Doctor said it, so...
Well, if you like, I'll pay for the drink. Or I'll pay for the painting and you can use the money to pay for the drink.
Exactly who are you?
Oh, I'm new in town.
Immediately suspicious of anyone wanting a painting.
Well, in that case, you don't know three things.
Go on.
1, I pay for my own drinks, thank you. 2, no one ever buys any of my paintings or they would be laughed out of town. So if you want to stay in town, I suggest you keep your
He's
cash
got
to
a Scottish
yourself.
accent.
3,
I would like a bottle of wine, please, which I will then share with whomever I choose.
that could be good. It's good by me.
Good.
Amy, you do have money, right?
That accent of yours. You from Holland like me?
Yes.
No.
Which means yes.
So, my brother's always sending doctors.
Theo.
But you won't be able to help.
Oh, I'm not that kind of doctor.
Just a general doctor.
By the way, I've seen the one-man show Vincent in person, starring Leonard Nimoy.
One of my favorite paintings. Get away from her! Okay. Madman out of here! Don't bring this on us! You're madness! You! He's the blame!
Jeez, you try to make a couple paintings. Suddenly you're the devil of the town.
As I thought. Come on, we better get you home.
Where are you staying tonight?
Oh, you're very kind. Dark night. Very starry.
Eh,
Much.
You know, you should be careful with these. They're
eh.
Precious. Every time I step outside, I feel nature is shouting at me. Come on, come and get me. Come on, come on! Capture my mystery!
Maybe you've had enough coffee now. How about
Yeah.
some nice, calming tea? Easy, Vincent, easy. Look, it's me. It's the doctor, look. No one else is here. So, Vincent.
Oh! Oh! Right, well, good job.
So he's invisible. What did he look like?
I'll show you.
Oh,
No!
there goes.
He's just, that was quite good. Okay.
Wow.
It's a giant cockatoo.
Eh. Thank goodness it's invisible. It saves a lot on budget.
You're in here somewhere. I can't apologise enough. I thought you were just a useless gadget. I thought you were just an embarrassing present from a dull godmother with 2 heads and bad breath. Twice. How wrong can a man be?
Well, he's had that thing a long time.
Good. Okay. You're working. Now, see what you make. I hope we meet again soon so I can take you home. Maybe not that soon.
Eh. I'm not ready yet. Boy, this thing's like a reverse vampire. No, not the bike.
Bang its head on the overhead.
Come on. Annie! Amy's got a little surprise for you.
I thought I'd brighten things up to thank you for saving me last night.
Ah,
I thought you might like, possibly to perhaps paint them or something.
Be left once more with an empty heart and no hope.
My experience is that there is, surprisingly always hope.
then your experience is incomplete.
Come on. Come out. Come on. Let's go outside.
Out! Get out! What are you doing here? What are you doing here?
Very well. I'll leave. I'll leave you.
I'm ready. Let's go. You've lost someone, I think.
I'm not sad.
Then why are you crying? It's all right. I understand.
I'm not sure I do.
You're so perceptive.
Okay. So, now we must have
He sees things outside of what other people see.
Eh.
You do have a plan, don't you?
No. It's a thing. It's like a plan, but with more grains.
Eh.
Plan-ish. Planet.
I'm not sure about mad either. It seems to me depression is a very complex.
I'm working.
Well, yes.
I remember watching Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel. Wow. What a whinger. I kept saying to him, look, if you're scared of heights, you shouldn't have taken the job, mate. Is this how time normally passes?
Really slowly.
Why, yes, Doctor.
In the right order.
There! He's at the window.
Where?
There, on the right.
How do you get in?
As I thought. Come on. Don't follow me under any circumstances.
I won't.
I mean that this time.
Will you follow him?
Of course.
What did I just say?
It's like Perseus and Medusa. He's got to look through a mirror. That effect over her face looks a little bit like stained glass.
Come on! Over here!
He's got a chair.
Okay. Here's the plan. Amy, Rory. Sorry, Vincent.
What's the plan?
I don't know, actually. My only definite plan is that you do...
It's charging now! Get back! Get back!
Yeah.
What is it?
I'm having trouble making it out, but I think he's saying I'm afraid. I'm afraid.
He was frightened,
It's really just an animal.
and he lashed out. Like humans who lash out when they're frightened. Complex magic of nature blazes before our eyes.
I've seen many things, my friend. But you're right. Nothing quite as wonderful as the things you see.
Oh, I wish I could see the night sky like that.
I will miss you terribly.
Now, you know we've had quite a few chats about the possibility there might be more to life than normal people imagine. Oh.
Yes.
Oh, look what they've done to the
Bless
TARDIS.
yourself, Vinny.
Yeah, post no bills.
Eh. Oh, and all that color too.
How come I'm the crazy one, and you two have stayed sane?
I'm good. Get all that stuff off.
When they'll pass you
Oh, look. That was Perseus and Medusa.
To me, Van Gogh is the finest painter of them all. Certainly the most popular great painter of all time. The most beloved. To my mind, that strange, wild man who roamed the fields of Provence was not only the world's greatest artist, but also one of the greatest men who ever lived.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Sorry about the beard.
Couldn't be.
I still can't believe one of the haystacks was in the museum. How embarrassing.
It's been a great adventure and a great...
And you are sure marriage is out of the question?
This time. I'm not really the marrying kind.
We have here the last work of Vincent Van Gogh, who committed suicide at only 37.
The way I see it, every life is a pile of good things and bad things. Hey, the good things don't always soften the bad things, but vice versa. The bad things don't necessarily spoil the good things or make them unimportant.
Just a little extra on there.
If we had got married, our kids would have had very, very red hair.
The ultimate ginger.
Brighter than sunflowers.
Alrighty.
Nice.
You know, it was only at that last shot of the painting that I remembered. I was like, oh yeah, I don't know anything about Vincent Van Gogh, and I didn't know anything about Vincent Van Gogh. I mean, I knew who Vincent Van Gogh was, obviously,
Yeah.
which is more than can be said of the Agatha Christie episode. But I think at the end there, I was like, oh, clearly that's a new painting or something, and it's just like, no, that's not a new painting.
No.
The foreline is new,
Yes.
but. So yeah, so if you go back and watch that original video, I look like a giant idiot at the end. But look, we talk about the American educational system all the time. Van Gogh was not taught anywhere.
Pretty much, if you don't take an art history class, you're not going to learn much about that.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I will say this for not only the American educational system, but also the British and the French and Germans and because starting about the 1950s, after World War II, the Britannica Company, the World Book, several other encyclopedias began to be published with an update on a yearly basis. For some reason, my family always bought the World Book. I still have out in the garage, I have a set of World Books from 1959 where the article on space travel talks about how very soon the United States will be able to send people into space. Okay, so that's literally 10 years before we went to the moon. But I don't think I ever learned about Vincent van Gogh during any of my time, either in junior high or high school. And quite honestly, in college, I don't think I ever took an art appreciation class. I took a music appreciation class. But I'm the kind of person that if I heard the name Vincent van Gogh on television, or if they showed one of his paintings, I'd go pull out the V volume and look him up and say, oh, that's really cool. Hey, I've seen that Starry Night picture. Then, of course, in the late 60s, early 70s, there is a song called Starry, Starry Night, which is a brilliant song. It really does encapsulate pretty much everything he did, not only in this episode, but in his volume of work. So, if you had any kind of curiosity at all, which of course I did, you can tell that because I watched Doctor Who, you went to the encyclopedia. You learned about it on your own. And that's one of the reasons why for almost 30 years I have railed against students having their phones to be able to use during school time. Because instead of looking up Vincent Van Gogh, they'd be listening to music or, doing silly stuff. I think what the internet and what the access to phones has done is it has decreased younger people's curiosity. And if you're not curious about, what is outside of your tiny little sphere, then you are going to miss out on a lot of lessons that can be learned from history. One of the reasons I wanted to teach history for so long. I started that idea. I think it probably germinated when we lived in France, but it was solidified when I lived in England. And I would literally look around and go, I've been to Cambridge. I've seen the university there. When you think that university has been around for 800-900 years, it's like, that's longer than the United States has been here. It's longer than the colonies have been here. So it's just you have to have a curiosity about the world about you, because as the saying goes, those who do not learn from the past are condemned to repeat it. So thus endeth today's sermon.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, there are moments like this where, I remember when we watched Conclave, and then pretty much right after that, well, it was around that time that, the new pope was chosen and everything. I literally went down a rabbit hole of just reading every Wikipedia page about every pope. I got through like 30 of them before I finally gave up. And mainly just because those Wikipedia pages were not very long for most of the early popes. But I was just kind of going down a rabbit hole. And you're right that it's like, despite the fact that it's much easier to access this information, any kid could be like, oh, I want to learn about Vincent Van Gogh. They have their magical rectangle, near them, and they can go to Wikipedia, and it's all good. And it's like, but they don't do that, And so it's like, we kind of need shows like this, obviously, to be like, hey, here is some history. And Doctor Who has been less about that over time than how it started out. But it is difficult, because nowadays it's like, well, are the kids going to look something up on Wikipedia, or are they going to go to TikTok? And now maybe if someone makes, historical TikToks about historical figures, maybe they can find something. But then again, you're also not, I guess I don't know how TikTok works at all, but I don't think you can just find a TikTok. I think they just algorithmically feed stuff to you. Yeah. So it's definitely tricky. It's probably why the literacy rates are going down, especially in America. So,
but and I don't know if I say this, if I have said it, or if I don't say it enough, but one of the things that I admire about you is that, like I was when I was your age and younger, if something piques your interest, you actually go and look it up. You look at a Wikipedia page, and there are people who say, oh, Wikipedia, it's not okay, but it's accessible.
Yeah.
I would rather you look at Wikipedia than not look at all.
It's the gateway to the rest of the stuff.
And if you want more, it has links and says, hey, you want external links? That's good. But it's like when back in would have been either late 63 or early 64, I watched Marco Polo. And I thought, wait a minute, what is this European guy doing in China in the late 1200s? So you go look at him and go, holy crap.
Yeah.
His father and his uncle went to China, came back when he was, he must have been like 5 or 6 or 7. He was very young when they left, but he was in his teens when they came back, and he said, I want to go. And when he went, he learned literally nearly all of the languages of the people on his way out there. He served in the court of the Khan for 20 some odd years before he finally returned home. And people, when he came home, and the sidebar, he was caught in a war between Venice and Genoa, I think. While he was in jail, there was this guy in his cell named Rustichello, who I guess was a scribe. Marco described his travels to Rustichello, who wrote it all down, and they published this book, The Travels of Marco Polo, and people went, holy crap, what is this black stone that burns? What are you talking about? Unaware that there were coal deposits all over Europe, and that was about to become the number one source of fuel and especially heat for centuries to come. So, when he describes mountains higher than birds can fly, in Europe, all they had ever seen were the Pyrenees and the Alps and the Apennines. It's so when he talks about these mountains are so high you can't believe it, people went, oh, that's not possible. And then you go and find out the Himalayas, the highest peak in the Himalayas is, 29,000 feet? That's nearly 6 miles above sea level. So that's the kind of stuff that I wished the makers of Doctor Who would do more often.
Yeah.
Just like this. If you didn't know about Vincent Van Gogh, watch this episode and then go look him up.
Yeah, and especially with modern Doctor Who as well, they always give you just a little piece of a lot of these people. And one thing I just thought of is they've been giving a lot of, towards the end, well, this is the last year that Charles Dickens was alive. And, he died a year later. He didn't finish the one play.
Mystery of Edmund Drood.
Yeah. He didn't finish that. And then you go to Agatha Christie, and it's this is something later in her life. Not fully, towards the end, but something later in her life, this sort of mystery that nobody really figured out, and they kind of give an explanation of that in their own, Doctor Who way. She got possessed by a hornet for a little bit and got hypnotized and yada yada. And it's here's Vincent Van Gogh at the end of his life, and how even though he has this incredible experience with the Doctor, it ultimately doesn't fully change everything in his life. Maybe the only one that's not towards the end of his life was probably when they met Shakespeare. So that's the thing. It's there's a lot of that where it just gives you this little piece of it, and with a lot of these people, it's well, you at least have heard of them. Yes. It's Charles Dickens, okay, well, everyone at the very least has seen A Christmas Carol, especially in 2005 when that episode aired. Everyone knows who Shakespeare is. Everyone should know who Agatha Christie is, but that's beside the point. Everyone should know who Vincent Van Gogh is, so it's it just gives you this nice snapshot to be all right, here's this historical figure, and also it's a very good episode on top of that.
Yeah.
It fits perfectly into Doctor Who, but yeah, it's but why? I mean, I know why. We know why they don't do this more. Because the little kids, when they're done with their brain rot, they want to go watch the space aliens. And fair enough, they've wanted to do that for 60 years. But, but honestly, you can make so many more episodes, especially when you have historical episodes that have the aliens in it, Yeah. So,
I mean, even Winston Churchill.
Yeah, we had the Churchill episode. I mean, there's also, we watched the 13th Doctor episode, Demons of the Punjab, where it's here's the conflict between
India and Pakistan.
I remembered Pakistan. I was it's India. Yeah, that's it. I remember. It's been a while since we watched that episode, but it's oh, okay, I didn't know anything about that, and now I have at least a basis of knowledge. That one didn't even have historical figures, just a historical conflict, and it was good because it explained enough of it for me to understand, which was also good because when we watched Miss Marvel, and that also had that, but they didn't really show any of that for 4 episodes, and I was well, thank goodness I watched that Doctor Who episode, otherwise I would have no idea what we're talking about right now. So, but that's the thing, it's just come on, just do it, give us a little bit more.
I would constantly, in my world history classes and then later in Oklahoma history classes, if I finished a segment, on a specific event and didn't have time to go any further on it because we had more to cover, I would always tell my students, listen, if you are interested, if you're intrigued by this story, please go on Wikipedia or, just go to Google, just search the Tulsa Race Massacre, search the Trail of Tears. It's fascinating to see how sometimes even a tiny little thing causes a complete change in history. For example, one of the things is some people probably know that where we live, what is now Oklahoma, was actually part of the Louisiana Purchase. But there was a reason why the British and then later the Americans never moved into the Louisiana Purchase area. First of all, it was supposedly owned by the French. They were actually only claiming it to keep the British and the Americans out. But the reason why that the American settlers finally started moving across the Mississippi into the Louisiana Purchase territory was because of the War of 1812. You're going, wait a minute. War of 1812 was literally fought in the eastern states and especially in the Atlantic Ocean and up in the Great Lakes. So how did that affect Oklahoma? Because at the end of the War of 1812, the treaty in 1818 set a boundary between what was British Canadian land and American land. A year later, in 1819, the Adams-Onis Treaty settled the border between the Louisiana Purchase and Spanish lands to the south. So, now knowing where the Americans could legally and supposedly safely go, they started coming in. In 1821, a former soldier, Colonel A.P. Choteau, established the first American outpost in what became Oklahoma. So, it's two things that seem to be completely unrelated. The treaty that ended the War of 1812 and then the Adams-Onis Treaty ultimately led to the settlement of what is now Oklahoma.
Yeah.
You know, look up stuff like that. I mean, I know that the British students probably know about 1066, the Battle of Hastings. If they don't, you need to go research that, because that is how England became what it is today. You know, you had the warring factions, you had the basically the French and the Anglo-Saxons, and it wasn't until the Battle of Hastings that England really started to become what it is today.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
And it's a good thing, you know, there are at least shows and movies that still do history. I mean, probably one of the biggest examples recently would be Oppenheimer, you know.
Yeah.
How many people, and especially too, this isn't even technically because of Oppenheimer, but how many people learned about all of that because Barbie came out the same day, you know. And I remember there were stories of, you know, all these, you know, young women who are dressed up for Barbie sitting in Oppenheimer. It's like, oh, I hope they can enjoy that. That's 3 hours, and they're really here for Barbie, but they wanted to be a part of the meme and everything. But it's something.
And by the way, following this line of, if you're curious about something, we know that the only 2 times that nuclear weapons have been dropped on cities were the 2 Japanese cities right at the end of World War II. Now, I have always heard growing up that the first city was called Hiroshima. And then 25 years ago, I heard people start pronouncing it Hiroshima.
Yeah.
So I finally looked it up and said, how would the Japanese pronounce this? And as it turns out, the Japanese would pronounce it Hiroshima.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, that's the way I'll do it. I'll start saying that. And it never occurred to me to look up Nagasaki. But about 4 or 5 months ago, and it may have been simply because it stuck in my brain after Oppenheimer, I decided to look that up, and it said, how would the Japanese pronounce that? And oddly enough, it's not pronounced Nagasaki in Japanese. It would be Nagasaki.
Yeah.
Accent on the second. So now, anytime I will refer to that, it'll be Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah, that's actually one thing I've learned watching so many anime is when I watch some anime in Japanese and then there's an English dub, for some reason, a lot of time, it's mostly with names where the English dub will put the emphasis on the second syllable because that's more how Americans do it. But I'm like, you don't need to do that. Like, there's a character in a show called Attack on Titan, and this one's the weirdest because this is actually reversed. Like, the English dub sounds more correct of just sort of, you know, they just sort of, you know, the Japanese just sort of go, whereas we put weird emphasis in English. But there's a character whose name is Mikasa, and that's how they say it in the English dub. And I thought, okay, so that sounds about right, how they would probably say it. And I've actually watched some of the Japanese, and they do say it like that. But for some reason, every English fan of this show says Mikasa. And I'm like, where did you get that? That's not how they would say that. But anyway, that's another tangent. But
Mikasa and Tsukasa.
Yeah, so it's just like, why do you guys say it like that? I know you all watch the Japanese. I know because you hate the English dub so much, but and it's also good that we get anime about history like Vinland Saga or On the Movements of the Earth. Both of them very, very good, and even stuff that's not technically historically accurate. I mean, actually, I've got it right here. I bought the book for it. This is called The Apothecary Diaries. This takes place in a fictional version of feudal China. I think they did that specifically instead of making it actual historical China, because this was made by a Japanese person and they don't want to piss off the Chinese. I'm almost 100% positive that's why. But this is a more fictional version of China. But this is still very, very good. So,
but you also reacted to Merlin, didn't you, the TV series?
Yes, I did.
Right. Now, here's the thing.
That was interesting.
Merlin, that's all historical fiction. There's absolutely no proof that there was ever anyone named Merlin. But it's still worth watching that, because if you go, all right, why are these people so fascinated by this guy named Merlin and this kid named Arthur? Well, because the ideal of British life goes back to these two. You get rid of the Romans, you have this king and his mentor who basically say, we have to change the way things are done. It isn't might is right, it's might for right. You have to use your power to do the right thing for the most people. So it's just, again, you have to learn from history, because if you don't, we're all doomed.
Yeah.
And that has, hopefully that's, just what you would take away from Vincent and the Doctor.
Yeah. As well as, I mean, this is, widely cited as one of the best episodes of Doctor Who. And most of that is in the portrayal of Vincent. And it's very good, showing the problems he had with, his mental health and everything. And, even with that moment at the end, this incredible, almost fairy tale moment of being able to see everything works out in the end. Because he talks about that, it's like, well, in the end, everyone leaves. Everyone always leaves me, and I'm just left alone in my sadness. I know how everything ends. So it's just like seeing all of that it's like, because despite the fact that it's like, no, everybody hated this guy, thought his paintings were absolutely dreadful, and he never found any success with that. Dr. Black says there, it's like, you could have, at the time of his death, you could have sold all of his paintings and gotten a sofa and a couple chairs. Like, that's all you really would have gotten for that.
Yeah.
And despite that, then, you take him there, and Dr. Black says, but even still, he's one of, if not the greatest painter who ever lived, Yeah. And so just seeing that, this almost like fairy tale that happens to him, but even still, it doesn't magically fix everything, He doesn't live, a long, healthy life and, makes hundreds, thousands of more paintings. It all pretty much ends exactly the same way.
Yeah.
But they added a little bit of good to Vincent's life.
It's also, that's, again, sorry, another tangent. One of the reasons why I love the play and the movie of Amadeus. Because at the time of Mozart's death, he was widely disregarded. Salieri was the court composer. People thought Salieri's music was great. But the more time went by, people began to realize Salieri's music was good, but Mozart's was brilliant. Mozart, again, one of those people like Vincent who, in his head, could see things that nobody else could. My favorite line in the movie, I don't think it's in the play, is when Simon Callow, who did Charles Dickens, he played Chickanator, I think. He's supposed to start rehearsals on the next day, and he comes to Mozart and says, "Do you have the score? Do you have the libretto? I need to be able to start rehearsals tomorrow." And Mozart says, "Yes, I have it." And Chickanator says, "Well, can I have it? Can you give me a copy?" And he says, "No." Chickanator goes, "Why?" He goes, "Because it's all in here. It's all in my noodle. The rest is just scribbling." And in one day, Mozart literally writes out the entire opera. Just annotates it, does everything, and says, "Okay, here." Because it was all completely composed in his head beforehand.
Yeah.
Before time.
Yeah. And so and honestly, I made the joke of like, well, it's an invisible monster to save on budget, and when you actually see it, it's not a very good effect of that monster. It's not the worst thing we've ever seen, but it's just a very obvious CG monster. But it also just does work of like, okay, here's this monster that nobody else on Earth can see. Nobody in the universe can see these creatures except Vincent Van Gogh, because he sees the universe completely different from everybody else. He looks up at the night sky. He doesn't just see, what everyone else sees and then draws a nice painting. That is what he sees. He sees the starry night, So it makes sense that he can see something that can't be seen by anyone else, Yeah. And so it's just an interesting way of like, weaving in more about him into what is ultimately kind of a goofy, monster story for Doctor Who. But
again, the writing on that one, it's not just an insensible monster. It's not just an animal.
Yeah,
it was brutally left behind because it was blind, and the other members of its species didn't want to take care of it. And again, at the end, when he says, "I'm afraid I'm alone," and then dies. I mean, that is not your standard scientific fiction fare.
Yeah, so and I mean there is an irony to the fact that the monster is blind, so he can't see anything, and everyone else on Earth can't see it. So it's just this interesting cycle that can only be broken by Vincent because he has, those special eyes basically. Yeah. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing. And also then, tying into the fact that, he has his episode, and then he gets up, I was like, okay, that passed, I'm good, let's go. And then, as they're walking and talking, he says, I can see the sadness in other people, and Amy, I see sadness in you. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not sad, I haven't lost anybody recently. And it's like, well, then why are you crying? He can see this aspect of her that even she can't see. She can't understand it, but he does. Yeah. So and well, I mean, technically the Doctor can see it too, but that's because he remembers everything that happened. So that's also just a very interesting thing, putting it right after losing Rory. So
it was interesting too that he had that line about "I'm getting old."
Yeah. So I mean that you mean the Doctor's line about that? Yeah. That is such an interesting thing, especially with the 11th Doctor, is they really start emphasizing how old the Doctor is. He's so far in, at the very least 11 lives in at this point. More potentially, later on that we come to learn about. But it is such an interesting thing, especially because of how young he looks, juxtaposing that with how old he actually is. And, all these different things, even at the end when he says, I'm too old. Why didn't I realize that the monster was blind? So it's a very interesting thing, just seeing their different, character struggles and how Vincent can obviously see it. So yeah, probably up there as one of the best episodes of Doctor Who, and definitely a very important episode as well. So I'm trying to think what the next historical, because I mean we've got 3 episodes left of the season, so technically we will get kind of another historical episode, but I'm trying to think of another one this season or next season. I don't know. This was kind of one of the last, not one of the last, but we kind of take a little break on historicals like this, which is unfortunate. We definitely need more and more of these. And well, of course, Doctor Who's off the air right now, so that doesn't really help. They're off the air and have no idea when they're coming back right now, so that's not really of any help. But yeah, you got anything else?
I got nothing.
Then I guess that is pretty much it. We're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist with all of our modern Doctor Who reactions, as well as another playlist for every Doctor Who video that's on the channel. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.